Welcome back, MTN Giants podcast. Just your average embarrassing Giants game at MetLife. I don't know why they can't score points at this stadium. I don't get it. Daniel Jones has still gone a year and a half, or almost 2 years now, without throwing a touchdown at MetLife Stadium. So that's a pretty insane record he's got going on, or a streak, I should say. The Giants' longest play was 14 yards in this game. 2024 NFL, longest play, 14 yards. Tough to win that way. Reporters were asking Dable, why can't we have explosive plays? I'll talk about that later. An interesting exchange there with Dan Duggan and Brian Dable. And of course, the elephant in the room, Saquon Barkley comes back to MetLife to face the Giants. He did get booed early, but as the game went on and the score got out of hand, the boos kind of got a little quiet, which is to be expected. But Saquon came in here, raised all types of hell. He was awesome. Probably could have easily had 200 yards if he wanted to. Saquon had 17 carries, 176 yards, a touchdown. Could have had another or two, but they decided to go to the tush push at the 1 yard line, which for my team with Jalen Hurts in fantasy, I appreciate that. But overall, not a lot of passing in this game, really, from either side. Only 114 passing yards for Hurts. Of course, Jones had 99 in 3 quarters, and Drew Lock came in and had 6. So embarrassing all around, but the Eagles running the ball were very good, whether it was Saquon especially, but Kenneth Gainwell. The Giants defense, they showed up in the first half for the most part, but the offense never showed up the entire day. And it's crazy how one man leaving the lineup, who's not a quarterback, because of course there's those times when you have the elite quarterback and a bad backup. There's those times where that quarterback gets injured and the backup comes in and he sucks. That's to be expected, but when the Giants lose their left tackle, Andrew Thomas, their offense goes from I'm not saying the Giants offense was good before Thomas got hurt, but they went from a average to below average offense to you can't even watch them. It always happens too when Thomas leaves the lineup. So only 3 points, 28-3. Shout out Falcons, but embarrassing. The Eagles go 4-2, Giants 2-5, and yeah, that's just not what you wanted to see. That's a game you have to show up for and be ready for. And looks like the Giants did no preparation throughout the week based on what I saw. And yeah, so disappointing. Season's over in mid-October, but we've been saying this now for 7 of the past 8 years, so it's not that much of a surprise. So, hey, the Giants are the 8th pick in the draft, so we'll start looking at Tankathon every week now. But anyway, hope you guys enjoy the video. Leave a like. Let's get into it. So before getting into the game, I just want to go through some tweets I bookmarked, I should say. So PFF had the Eagles' defensive stats: 8 sacks, 2.2 yards per play allowed. Oh my God. 3 points allowed, 3 for 14 on third downs for the Giants. I do want to go through the others. This was a stat too. So NFL on CBS said the only starting quarterback with 0 passing touchdowns in 6 straight home games since 2000 is Daniel Jones. Wow. That's tough to do. It really is. 6 straight home games without a passing touchdown for a quarterback. I mean, I don't know. I don't know whether to be impressed, whether to be you suck. I don't know. It's pretty impressive. But anyway, the exchange between Dan Duggan and Brian Dable, I do want to talk about it. I'm getting this from Authentic, so shout out to him for that. But basically, Dan Duggan said, "You really haven't been able to create explosive pass plays with Daniel Jones in 3 years. What gave you confidence that he can do it?" I love the way he phrased this question, because it's not I feel like Dable could have ran with this question and talked about just for this year, but it's not just this year. Daniel Jones has had a problem for a very long time, really since his rookie year, of creating explosive plays. Even during his breakout season, and I put breakout in quotes, but his breakout 2022 season, he had, and I've tweeted this before and I just said it today again, Daniel Jones had the lowest average depth of target of any qualified quarterback that year, meaning that the ball traveled in the air on average less than any other quarterback in the NFL. It was behind Colt McCoy, and it was behind Matt Ryan on the Colts when he was dog shit. So we're talking about a guy who, during his best year, quote unquote best year, couldn't even throw the ball deep. He wasn't doing it. So when you sign Daniel Jones, and I know it's not all Brian Daboll, he's not the GM, he didn't hand out the contract, but when you signed Daniel Jones, did you expect to have big plays? Did you expect him in year 5 and year 6 to just be a different guy? Turn everything around? Like, I don't. I feel like I've always said by year 3, you pretty much know with quarterbacks what you have. And especially year 4. So with Jones not even throwing deep in year 4, when he had his breakout, right? 2019, 2020. Yeah, so year 4 for Daniel Jones, he actually kind of broke out. He still wasn't throwing the ball deep. So I don't know what the Giants thought was going to change, and they went on to give him $92 million guaranteed. And that's just the frustrating part of it, is like you signed a guy to do things that he cannot do. And that's why it's hard to get mad at Daniel Jones, the person. He's just going out there playing football, trying to get the most money he can. I get it. The guys I'm mad at are the guys that, A, drafted him, which, Gettleman's gone, but B, the guy that paid him, which is Joe Schoen. And, like, you're paying him to do things he cannot do. Daniel Jones did a good job of running a pretty, how can I say this, a low passing volume offense, and an offense that didn't have much responsibility on his plate in 2022. An offense where it was pretty much one read or run. That's pretty much what he did in 2022. An offense where, once again, he was not throwing the ball deep at all. He was the worst ranked quarterback in terms of air yards in 2022. So he did that at a pretty high level, which is why people like myself, who have been considered haters and Daniel Jones haters and want to see him fail, people like me were getting attacked that offseason for saying, I don't want to pay this guy a lot of money. I will give Daniel Jones a franchise tag. I'll pay him $15-20 million per year for 2 or 3 years, but I'm not giving him the 4-year, $160 million contract that people were talking about, which he ends up getting. And that's why I said it, because the evidence was there that this was a limited quarterback. Even back then when the Giants went to the playoffs and won a playoff game, context is important, right? The Vikings sucked that year. We know the story. The defense, well, not the Vikings, but the defense was horrible. They had the 31st ranked pass defense, and Daniel Jones went in there twice and beat up on a bad pass defense. And that was maybe a big reason why he had so much leverage during contract negotiations. So, once again, I'm not mad at Jones. You did your thing. You played well that year. You got your money. But the guy I'm mad at is Joe Schoen, because you did not have to pay him that much money. And I've said this before. You were bidding against nobody. Which team that offseason was going to give Daniel Jones that amount of money? I don't know. Probably not many, if any. So that's the annoying part about it. So, I credit to Dan Duggan for asking this question. And Daboll's response was, we have some guys around him that can create explosive plays. So why haven't we seen it yet is my big question. Right? So we know Wan'Dale Robinson, although he's good in the intermediate and very short passes, he doesn't really do much after the catch. He's not a guy who makes big plays. I saw his stat line today was pretty funny, how short his catches were. He caught 6 of 9 balls for 23 yards, 3.8 yards per reception. So obviously Wan'Dale's not doing it for you in terms of explosive plays. Malik Neighbors was 4 for 41 in the air. That's pretty good, I would say. 10.2 yards per reception. But Slayton can make big plays. The guy who should be making them is Jalen Hyatt, who only got a target in the fourth quarter. The guy barely plays. He can't catch a ball. I think he has 1 catch on the year, and it was like a 5-yard curl. So the usage of him has been embarrassing, but you may have the guys that can make explosive plays, but you don't have the quarterback that can give them the ball to make the explosive plays. That's the problem. So I'm not saying the Giants receiving core is top 5. It's not, but it's also not awful. I've seen worse receiving cores than this. Even the one that Drake May is dealing with right now, and I didn't watch that game today. I saw his stat line. I saw a lot of his week 1 game, or not week 1, but his first start last week against the Texans, and he was making big plays. He hit Demario Douglas in stride for a 40-yard touchdown. He hit Kayshon Boutte for a 60-yard touchdown. Who the hell are those guys, right? If you're an average NFL fan, you've probably never heard of those guys. So, the point is, the Giants have an above-average receiving core. It's not that bad. It's really not. It's maybe league average at worst, right? Wan'Dale's a pretty good slot receiver. Malik Neighbors is legit. He's a wide receiver 1. I like Tyrone Tracy. Darius Slayton's a fine wide receiver 3. Even Jalen Hyatt for a wide receiver 4 should be better than he is. Devin Singletary when he plays is like all right. So it's like you have good enough weapons. The first 4 or 5 weeks, the offensive line was not an issue. It may be now because Thomas is out, but that was not an issue the first 4 or 5 weeks, and you really can't have explosive plays. And as I said before, the longest play was 14 yards. You cannot do that in this modern NFL and expect to win. You just cannot do it. You have to, like, that would be asking so much of your defense. If your offense is going to start the game and say, you know what, the longest play we're going to have today is under 15 yards, the defense is going to sit there and think, we can't even allow a touchdown or else this game might be over. Like, that's how bad it is. So without the explosive plays, and I do like how Dable acknowledged that explosive plays are important and they have put an emphasis on it, but they still can't do it, which is the biggest, like, flaw with this team. The offensive line was pretty bad, right? I think it's fair to say Jones and the offensive line sucked today. I don't think one party was good and one was bad. I think they both sucked, right? The offensive line had their bad moments. I saw Illuminor get beat twice. Van Roten got beat at some point. I think JMS got beat at one point. Azudu got beat multiple times, especially in the first half. So it's like, we'll go over the plays later, but the offensive line was not good, really. So, like, that's annoying how one guy leaves the lineup and the whole thing falls apart, giving up 8 sacks, and it maybe should have been like 5 or 6 sacks. I don't know about 8, but still, it's a lot of sacks either way. And I wonder how John Mara is going to react to this game. I haven't seen any quotes about John Mara. I know sometimes reporters maybe get like a sentence out of him, but I have not seen anything. But it makes you think back to Hard Knocks, because we all saw the Hard Knocks clip of Mara saying, well, if Saquon goes to Philly, I'm going to have trouble sleeping at night. And then that happens. He goes to Philly. And not only does Saquon go to Philly, but he goes to Philly. He's excelling. He might lead the league in rushing, if not for Derrick Henry. So he might be second or third. He'll be up there. But he goes to Philly. He looks incredible. Then he comes to MetLife at 3-2. Destroys your team, could have had 200 yards rushing, has a touchdown as well. His team destroys your team 28-3. I just wonder how he feels about that. Like, I'm kind of curious. We've seen the tweets before of John Mara throwing a chair, throwing a garbage can. I wonder what type of, like, rage John Mara felt today. Did he do anything? Did he punch a hole in the wall? I don't know. Like, it's very interesting to think about that. And as I said before, I do think that's going to factor into the tolerance and the leash that Joe Schoen has. If this one decision, the Saquon decision, went so south, which right now it is, the Giants suck and Saquon's excelling on an Eagles team that's 4-2. If the Saquon thing went south, which, as I said, it's happening right now, how will John Mara grade that one single move as compared to any other move, right? You're thinking about some of the other moves that he's made, like, I don't know, the Leonard Williams trade or something else that Joe Schoen's done. Like, that one move is going to make the difference. And I've said before, if Saquon went to Houston or some other team, I don't think it would matter as much. But the fact it's Philly, and we know John Mara does not like the Eagles and does not like getting embarrassed, especially at home, the fact that it's that team and that player, it means more than anything else to him. So we're going to see once, Black Monday comes around and whatnot, what's going to happen. I don't think Shane or Dable will get fired, but I'm not going to say it's off the table either. Like, I do think this season has to go pretty damn bad for one of those guys to lose their jobs. And right now they're 2-5. I still think this team will get 6 or 7 wins. I said 7 or 8 last week. I think it's 6 or 7 now. They'll find their way to F up their draft pick as they always do, like clockwork. So they'll get their wins at some point. But just for how things are going right now, I can't sit here and say for sure that they both will be back next year. I still think they will. I lean 80-20, maybe 75-25 that they will be back right now. But we're going to see how that plays out the rest of the year. So we'll go through the team stats, then we'll go through the individual plays and wrap things up, talk about maybe some narratives at the end. But anyway, Eagles had 4 touchdowns, Giants had 0. No surprise there. Penalties were pretty equal, same penalty yardage, both sides. Giants only had 119 offensive yards. Eagles had 339. That is so bad. Wow. So The Eagles had 220 more offensive yards. I mean, that is like so bad. Field goals, Giants were 1 for 1. Eagles did not kick any. No turnovers on each side, so a clean game there. Eagles had 269 rushing yards. The Giants only had 76. We did see Tyrone Tracy draw the start today. And I did see a tweet. It was a fantasy football guy, but I'm sure he's right about this, about the snap count between Devin Singletary and Tyrone Tracy. I do want to pull that up because it was pretty staggering how much of a discrepancy it was. Here it is. So this is from Jacob Gibbs, J.A. Gibbs 23 on Twitter. Week 7 snap rate, Tyrone Tracy, 67%. We even saw Eric Gray out there for a couple plays. I saw him in like the first quarter. I was like, but what is this guy doing? But anyway, 67% of snaps for Tyrone Tracy, 22% for Devin Singletary. So that's a very big difference there. And route participation, 69% for Tracy, 15% for Singletary. So it makes you think, is that just he's coming off an injury thing and we're trying to ease Singletary back into it? Or is that just how things will be in the Giants backfield now? That's the question. It's not a big question, but it's a question. So I think, as I said before, I think as the year goes on, he's going to play more, I think. The Giants gave him a decent contract. I think he's not going to play like this few amount of snaps. But I do think it will be a 60-40 split, 65-35. It's going to be something like that. I do think Tracy's done enough, and they like him enough. He is their draft pick to earn a lot more playing time than he was the first few weeks. Daniel Jones, 14 of 21, 99 yards. One pass attempt over 20 yards. And it was that one deep, I remember this now. Yes, it was the one deep pass to Neighbors where it should have been intercepted. I don't know why he threw it. He took that one deep shot that got picked off, but it was offside, so he made the right choice there. But one pass over 20 yards, that's been a Daniel Jones problem this year. I will say, within 10 yards throwing to his left, he was very good. He was like 8 for 8. Maybe 9 for 9, but yeah, that one deep ball he threw to Neighbors was disgusting, and it should have been picked. It really should have. So he was bad. And I said on Twitter during the game, I'm like, just bring in Drew Lock. You have nothing to lose. And that was kind of like the mindset. I did not expect Lock to come in and light the world on fire. But at the same time, the Giants needed some type of spark, and that's what Brian Daboll said in the postgame, which I agreed with, because what they were doing with Jones was not working. He was getting beat up as well. I feel like if he kept him out there, he might have got hurt pretty badly, so it's like they made the right choice. But you got to see what you have in Drew Lock at some point. And once again, I've been a Drew Lock defender, not a defender, but I've always liked Drew Lock. I'm a sucker for quarterbacks with big arms, and he does have a big arm. Not accurate, but he does have a big arm. And he will take chances. He'll throw the ball deep. They should have had a deep, honestly, it could have been a touchdown to Jalen Hyatt. He might have overthrown him by like a couple inches, and maybe Hyatt could have caught it. But I just think it's reached that point, and maybe they'll give Jones a couple more starts, but I feel like it's reached that point where it's like, what are we doing anymore with Daniel Jones? You kind of know what it is at this point. There will be specific games and matchups where he exploits it and looks really good and has 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no turnovers. But then for every one of those games, you get 2 or 3 of these games where it's like the guy should not be a starting quarterback in the NFL. So it's tough to consistently trot him out there 17 games and expect even 12 or 13 of them to be good games, because you might only get 4 or 5 good games out of the 17. So it's frustrating, and I don't think Lock's the answer once again, but it's also let's just see what else we have, I mean, I don't want to watch Tommy DeVito play football. I don't love watching Drew Lock play football. It's not fun, but at the same time, it's like we've seen Jones and we know what we have, and it's not fun. This guy is not that good. We've seen the best of him. It's over. And as I said, he'll have his great games. I don't think it'll be next week. I'd be surprised if he goes to Pittsburgh in primetime and wins that game. But Jones will have his games. If he's still starting against the Panthers in that game overseas, I'm sure he'll kill them, because he does kill bad teams. But I'm trying to see the schedule. So they play the Commanders week 9 and the Panthers week 10. I would not be surprised if Jones went off in one of those games. And we might get a quarterback change during the bye. That would not be the most shocking thing. And they would give Drew Lock and DeVito the last 7 games here. Is it 7? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 7. So there's 7 games after the bye. You maybe give Jones these final 3 games, weeks 8, 9, and 10, at Pittsburgh, home versus Washington, at the Panthers, which is in London, I believe. You see how that goes, and then you give the last 7 games to Locke/DeVito, and you end the season hopefully with a top 5 pick, and you get your freaking quarterback finally. So yeah, that's pretty much it for long-term stuff and big picture stuff and all that. But let's go through the game and some individual plays that really changed things here. First quarter, Brian Burns, shout out to him. He really played through a groin injury today. He was not looking great, but he made a big impact early, had that big 3rd and 10 sack, and he also had a play later where he was very involved on a Dexter Lawrence sack. The Giants had a 3rd and 3 near midfield, right, like just shy of the 50, and Azudu got beat by Nolan Smith. He just pushed him back very easily. That should not be happening. Gave up a sack there on 3rd and 3. The defense got another sack, the Giants defense, on 3rd and 10. That was the Dexter Lawrence sack where Ojulari, Elijah Chapman, and Brian Burns were just all there. And that was such a perfect rep because they were not giving Jalen Hurts any lane to step up in the pocket. Hurts tried to run left, juke out Lawrence, but it wasn't happening. It was such a great containment by the Giants defensive line there. Second quarter, Saquon had the long run down the left sideline. It looked like Deonte Banks got bulldozed by one of those Eagles guards. Kenneth Gainwell had a 15-yard gain as well. And it wasn't just Saquon. I feel like Gainwell had a couple runs where it's like, what do we do? Even that reception he had where he caught the one over the middle, just a check down, and Gainwell spun out of a tackle from Micah McFadden and picked up a first down. It's like, that's bad tackling even on Kenneth Gainwell. It's not just Saquon Barkley. It looked like Ojulari could not contain the edge on that play either. And yeah, so Banks was not great there on that play. Daniel Jones sacked on a 3rd and 11 by Bryce Huff. He held the ball for a while, but Van Roten and Illuminor on the right side got beat as well. But once again, I think they gave him at least 3.5 seconds. You got to do something there. Got to throw the ball away. Step up in the pocket, try to run, do something. Don't just take the sack. Eagles had a 4th and 3, a big play in the game here. 4th and 3. They're on the Giants 41. They go for it. Makes sense in that situation. For some odd reason, A.J. Brown was matched up one-on-one with Nick McLeod, and the Giants were kind of rolling their coverage to the right, so it really left A.J. Brown just completely one-on-one with Nick McLeod, and that matchup went as expected. Jalen Hurts, who almost got sacked, almost got the ball tipped, threw a great ball. That's one thing Jalen Hurts. He does not do well, Jalen Hurts, I feel like, from 20 yards in. But Jalen Hurts can throw those great deep balls, just throw it to the moon and just falls in a bucket. He's still good at that. It's kind of like Russell Wilson back in the day. But, not even back in the day. Russell Wilson can still kind of do that with Denver, but not much else. But A.J. Brown makes the big touchdown, 41-yard touchdown. And that was the play where it's like, all right, yeah, this one's probably over. I think that made it 14-0 at that point. So that was disappointing. Daniel Jones had the horrible deep ball to Neighbors. Should have been picked off. I just talked about that. Theo Johnson right before halftime. A big play, big momentum change. It annoyed me because being a Giants fan, I think the broadcast said it too, so I don't want to steal it, but it is very true how Jason Witten did this for how long did he play? Probably near 20 years, 16, 17 years, whatever it was. Jason Witten did this for over a decade, just pushing off and catching a ball, and that's what Theo Johnson did, and they called offensive pass interference, and I just don't think it was that bad enough to throw the flag. So the Giants get screwed there. Instead of 7-14 at halftime, it's 3-14, so that was annoying. Third quarter, first drive, you had that Wan'Dale drop on a 3rd and 2. He did get hit by Darius Slay, but guys like Wan'Dale and specifically Darius Slayton have tough times playing through contact. That's one thing I don't love about the Giants receiving core, and even Jalen Hyatt. Those guys just don't play through contact very well. A guy like Malik Neighbors, he definitely plays through contact very well, but for Wan'Dale and Slayton, they just don't do it very well. If a corner hits them as the ball's coming in, they're most likely not catching it. So that's always been a frustrating part of those guys' games. Barkley had the other big run over the middle, just a giant gap in the middle of the field. Pinnock tried to make a tackle. He dove. He missed. Saquon picked up a bunch of yards there. Illuminor got beat by Nakobe Dean. Not beat by Nakobe Dean, but I know Nakobe Dean had the sack on this play. And Jones tried to step up, and he took a sack once again. Deonte Banks made a business decision in the early fourth quarter as Jalen Hurts had that run to the right side, picked up a first down. And it was I'm sure they'll see this in film. I'm sure they'll go over this, but the lack of effort by Deonte Banks on that play was pretty surprising. I was like, wow, like that, he's just jogging. He doesn't even want to make the tackle. So that was pretty rough to see. Then you had Jones getting benched for Drew Lock. Lock came in, got sacked, almost had the deep pass to Hyatt. And aside from that, it was pretty awful. Had a couple overthrows. And as I said, the answer for the Giants quarterback situation is not on the roster. But it's almost like we've seen so much of Daniel Jones. Why not try it out? Why not give Locke some starts, see how it goes? I still think Daniel Jones will start until the bye. It's only 3 more games. But why wouldn't you want to see what you have elsewhere? So I don't know. I am concerned the rest of the way because of no Andrew Thomas, who does have one of those. I think it's a Liz Frank injury, which those are tough to come back from sometimes. I've heard about it. I think that's the thing that pretty much ended Santonio Holmes' career. And I'm sure there's some other guys as well. But, it's not like one of those things where it's a guarantee he's going to come back and be the same Andrew Thomas. And it's been frustrating because Thomas is such a good player, but, like, the durability has been an issue. Like, when he plays, he's one of the better left tackles in football. But he also has missed a lot of time with injuries. So it's been annoying. Yes, Antonio Holmes, I looked it up. He did have a Liz Frank surgery. So yeah, that kind of ended his career. So anyway, that is a concern. I wonder if they shift around the offensive line. Do they try Illuminor at left tackle? Do they put Evan Neal at right tackle? And I kind of wonder, like, how bad can Evan Neal be in practice where he's not getting reps over Josh Azudu? Azudu's not that good. It just is what it is. He's just not going to fly at tackle. They've tried it. It just doesn't work. And I just wonder why they're not trying Illuminor at left tackle or even put Evan Neal at left tackle. And, like, I just don't get it. Like, you took this guy literally 7th overall just a couple of years ago in the draft, and he can't even play over Josh Azudu. Like, really? So that part is frustrating. And, yeah, it's just another Giants season where it's over before October ends, and it just is what it is. It's going to be a long year. I cannot believe they came into the year with this as their quarterback room. They downgraded at backup quarterback. They went from Tyrod to Drew Lock. They keep Daniel Jones coming off a neck and ACL injury. They still have the Deli boy at the third-string quarterback. What the hell is his name? DeVito. So you have that going for you. But your answer is not on the roster. It's not even close. So, yeah, they passed on a few quarterbacks in the draft, and here we are. I've reached a point where I don't care if they lose anymore because I don't think they're making the playoffs. So if they lose the rest of the games, like, I don't care. And I've made this argument before. I know people, when you have the tanking versus winning meaningless games debate, people always say, well, you don't want to lose the locker room. You don't want to lose the culture. And think about it. Let's go back to last year, right? Let's go back 10, 11 months. If the Giants had gotten Jaden Daniels or Drake May, would we really care right now if Brian Daboll was the coach or if it was somebody else? Would it really matter? Would you rather have Brian Daboll in this quarterback situation, or would you rather have Drake May or Jaden Daniels and a different head coach? I'm taking the second part any day of the week. And I like Brian Daboll. I want to see Daboll with a real quarterback. I think Daboll is actually going to be, he should be a good coach one day if he has the right guy. But I just think it's pretty impossible to win with Jones. He's done it for that 1 year. I think that was a very outlier-ish type of year. But I would much rather have the quarterback. It's a shame that they won those games at the end of last year. It always pisses me off, and I'm getting to that point where, like, I came in today wanting to win. I wanted to get back to 3-4 and beat Saquon, beat the Eagles. But when you watch a game like this, it's like, why do I want wins? Like, what's that going to do for me? We have to fix the quarterback spot. Right? You have an offensive line that when Thomas played was pretty good. You have your wide receiver 1. You have your slot wide receiver. Wide receiver 2 is not like the biggest need, but, they'll get somebody eventually. You have a defensive line that is very good when they're healthy. Linebacking core is, like, okay. Cornerbacks are shaky, but that's one position group. You have a safety duo that you're hoping as they get older, and especially for Newbin, they get better. By the way, Dane Belton, man, he got ran over by Saquon. That was a rough rep there for Dane Belton. But anyway, but the point is, people do argue when you say the Giants are a quarterback away. I do think they somewhat are. I really do. Like, I don't think this team is that terrible. You know, like, they have enough talent now where, you know, if you pick high enough in the draft for so many consecutive years, you're going to accumulate talent, which is kind of why, like, a team like the 2017 Jaguars made that AFC championship run. Like, when you pick top 5 year after year after year, you're going to have enough talent, right? The Giants have gotten enough of it. They've gotten Andrew Thomas. They've gotten Kayvon. They should have had Evan Neal, but he hasn't panned out. You have Malik Neighbors. Like, you have enough guys year after year after year picking in the first 10 picks. You're going to find enough good players. And I think right now the Giants roster is not completely awful. They just have an awful quarterback. Quarterback room. Not just quarterback, but quarterback room. Like, think about this team if we had Jaden Daniels. It would change everything. I know it'd be no Malik Neighbors, and it's a trade-off, but still, you just hang with me here. But let's say next year the Giants get a quarterback, and the kid has an immediate impact like a Daniels or like a Stroud, even though the CJ Stroud thing is tough to replicate. Like, that's very tough to do. But it does seem like there's always that one quarterback every year that, like, as a rookie just comes in and plays very well off the bat. So let's say the Giants get that guy next year. Right, the Commanders, who are now looked at as a good football team. Think about what the Commanders were a year ago. I think at this time a year ago, they actually were like 4-2 or something. Like, they lost like their last 12 games. But think about them, and like at the end of last year, they were a laughingstock, horrible ownership group, everything, horrible coaching. Ron Rivera just didn't know what he was doing anymore. Just everything was bad about that situation. And like, yes, they got a new coach. Yes, they got a GM. Yes, they added veterans, Wagner, Louvu, Austin Eckler, whoever, right? A bunch of guys from Dallas. And what's his name? Dante Fowler had hell of a game today. Had a touchdown, a pick 6, a big 4th down stop. But anyway, they made some roster improvements. But from one offseason, the main ingredient there was Jaden Daniels. The Commanders a year ago were awful. They were not like a real team. They were just like one of those bottom 3 teams where you're like, oh, I forgot they were in the NFL. Like, they were that bad. And now they're like, oh, wait, this team might be a top. Oh, wow, Devontae Adams drops his first ball from Aaron Rodgers. That's awkward. Could have been a better pass. But anyway. So, yeah, it's not like the Commanders, it's not like it took 20 years to rebuild this team like some people may say. I think rebuilds are kind of looked at in a different way by some people. Like, I'm trying to think. Like, I think, honestly, you can argue the Commanders had just a 1-year rebuild, right? You think about what they were last year till now, it's completely different. So I feel like when a new regime comes in, that's when the rebuild starts. So you had last year, you lose the last 10, 11 games, whatever I said before. You bring in the new regime, Dan Quinn, Adam Peters. You sign veterans, you draft well, you have your franchise quarterback, and just like that, you have a team that might be competing for, like, you know, the NFC East crown and might have a top 4 seed in the playoffs. Like, they could be that good. So, yeah, I mean, it's just crazy how one player can make a difference, and that's why I think the Giants might be a quarterback away. You know, I don't know who I like in this quarterback class yet. I'm not an avid college football watcher. I already spent enough time on the couch Sunday as it is, so I don't want to double up. But, you know, I'll do my research eventually. I'll find my guys that I like, and we'll see what happens. But there are at least some intriguing prospects. I've watched the highlights so far. I kind of know who's who and what's what. So I just hope they pick high enough to get somebody they like, because the Giants always find an excuse not to take a quarterback. And I hope they find one that they like, and Brian Daboll can mold that kid into a top 10 quarterback one day. If Brian Daboll's here to do that, which, as I said before, I still think it's more likely than not he'll stay. But I am curious to know, because it does feel like, based on past press conferences, Daboll's always kind of made excuses for Jones and has shown he'll have a longer leash for him. But this time it felt like Daboll's tone was different towards Daniel Jones. So maybe we'll wake up tomorrow and there might be a quarterback change. I guess it wouldn't be the most shocking thing, but I still think they'll wait till the bye. I do think they'll give him 3 more games, which is sad. I don't like watching Jones play, but we'll see. I think they'll They'll hold out. Maybe they'll play next Sunday night or Monday night? I forget now. But they'll play next week in prime time at Pittsburgh, and Jones is embarrassing, and maybe he gets benched right there. But I don't know. We're going to see. Dable was clear in saying he just benched him to get a spark. It didn't work, obviously, but I respect the hustle. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I feel like I'm rambling at this point, but frustrating year. It just is what it is, and I just hope that at some point in late April, we are announcing a quarterback in the first round, and we get somebody that majority of the fan base can get behind, because as the games go on, you see less and less people on the Daniel Jones bandwagon. I feel like if you are on the Daniel Jones bandwagon still, like, you have to have some sort of mental illness or something. Like, there's no way you watch that guy play and you're like, I see it. I see what people are seeing. Like, no, there's nothing there anymore. There really never was, but like, there's really nothing there at this point where you could be like, I see it. I definitely, like, no, stop. Just be honest with yourselves. I know, like, we want to root for Giants players. I completely get it. We want to be fair. We want to be optimistic, but just stop. Like, just tell it how it is. Guy stinks. All right? Like, yeah, I thought after 2022, the guy might have been a top 20 quarterback in football. I think I put him 19th in my quarterback rankings that year. Never thought he was that great, but I thought he was like an average quarterback, and he just sucks now. Like, it just is what it is. The league caught on. And honestly, in late 2022, the league already caught on. They went like 2-5-1 to end the year. So, yeah, it's just the way the whole thing played out was annoying, and I'm just happy that the Jones era, it seems like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that it might end soon. And for a guy like me who's been a fan since about 05-06, Daniel Jones getting cut by the Giants might be like a top 10 moment in my Giants fandom. Like, it's been that bad. I just have disliked this experience with him so much that of all the playoff wins I've seen, the Super Bowl wins, I mean, it won't top those, obviously, but of all the great things I've seen with the Giants, that notification from Schefter that the Giants have released Daniel Jones might be top 10 of all time in my favorite moments of Giants fandom. We'll see how I feel when it happens, but I cannot wait. And I feel bad saying it, kind of, because, like, you know, Daniel is still a human, but listen, you made like 90-something million guaranteed. You'll go be a backup somewhere for a better team. You'll be fine. But for us fans who, and I know, listen, I've seen people in my DMs that I've had convos with, and like, there are a good amount of Giants fans out there that cannot stand Jones, and they've been that way for a while. And yeah, I'm watching this Deonte Banks play on loop of him not tackling Jalen Hurts. It's pretty bad. He really didn't give a shit. He was like, yeah, just go. And this crazy part is, like, Jalen Hurts had a lane to turn and go down the sideline more. So, like, if there wasn't safety help, like, he might have been gone. So, I don't know. I mean, shout out to Okereke. He was chasing him down. But anyway, yeah. New quarterback in 2025, hopefully. I really hope the Giants are a QB away. They might be. I really think they might be. We've seen so many examples now of, like, draft a quarterback plays well, organization does a 180, and like, you're back. And I think the Giants with Brian Daboll coaching can be that. So we'll see. But an embarrassing effort by the run defense, embarrassing effort by some guys in the secondary, embarrassing effort from the Giants offense, specifically the passing offense, and yeah, that was not a fun watch. So we'll see. I'll do my NFL recap video on probably Tuesday night. I'll have my Giants-Steelers preview on Thursday or Friday, maybe Saturday at latest. And I'll talk to you guys next time.